Hey, happy April, everyone. This week we're going to go over how I did these cute little spring flowers using watercolor. These are so simple, and I want to mention to you guys we have a challenge coming up in my student group, and I'll give you some details for that coming up. So check it out. Welcome to my YouTube channel where I have new videos every Tuesday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. So make sure you click that subscribe button and click the little bell and you'll never miss one. So hey everyone, it's Kelly here from Kellie Chasse Fine Art. I wanted to mention to you we have a student challenge coming up. It's going to be a flower challenge. So how appropriate that we've got this cute little demo here for you. So the rules for the student challenge. Basically, it's going to be April 8th through April 15th, and you're just going to paint your favorite flower that week. Some of the students will be featured on my YouTube channel coming up on April 17th, so just make sure if you want to be a part of that you tag me with hashtag flower challenge and also on my Instagram page, so I'm sure to see it that way. So I wanted to mention with you, when I first start with my watercolor, I usually will spritz my little container really lightly and make sure that you wet your brush before you do so, because if you mix up all your color and you have a dry brush, your dry brush is just going to suck up that whole puddle that you just made. So something to keep in mind. So I did start this one out. I did not film it at first. I totally forgot to turn my camera on. So I got the second part of it here, and I already had this part done. So I'm going to show you how I did my doodles. Now you can see these are not real exact flowers, and I wanted to have it that way because I'm going to do most of my details with my pen. So I'm just using, basically it's just it's a black, I don't even know what the brand the pen this is, but you could use a black Sharpie, anything that's fine tip, a micro pen, anything like that. And I'm not even following those lines on this. I'm just sketching it around. This is a wonderful, I always say this, wonderful warm-up painting. These kind of things are great just to get your imagination going, and you don't have to be exact with it. So there's no pressure with these kind of paintings. So I love them. They're great for if you want to do your journal. And what I'm using here for this demo here, let me grab my little booklet here, is it's a Winsor Newton watercolor pad of paper, and this is actually 140-pound cold press paper, 100% cotton. And I love Winsor Newton. This one has a little ring binder on it, so if you want to tear these out, they've got a little perforated edge on here. But I keep them all in here. It's a great way to carry your watercolors with you. I just bring this little pad with me when I'm heading out for the day, and I bring my little Cotman kit with me as well, and just, it makes it really simple if I want to sketch something plein air or head out. And it makes a nice little journal. So these little papers are perfect for making cards with, things like that. So you can see I was very light with my sketch, and now I'm going to grab my white Posca pen. And I have never used this with my watercolors before. I can't believe I've never tried it, but I didn't have my gouache handy with me, and this was sitting on my desk, so I thought, well, let's give that a shot. So this works great. It stayed very white. I'm usually using this with my alcohol inks, and this worked out really well to be able to create some white in here for the little petals. So Posca pens, they have a ton of different shapes and sizes for the nibs, and they have a nice little starter kit, the one I picked up on Amazon. So they have the black pens and they have the white pens, and they come in different sizes, which is a really cool one. So I'll put the link down below for you if you're interested in looking at that on Amazon. So very simple here. I'm just, adding some little details here and there and just playing with it and having fun. I did decide that I wanted just a little bit more. I had a lot of white space on this one. So I'm going to go back in and do a little bit more here with this, and I'll show you. So I'm going to just take that black pen. I'm just going to sketch in a few more things here, just a couple little more flowers. I am not a big flower person, not with painting them anyway. I absolutely love flowers, but I'm such an exact painter a lot of times. I do a lot of realism, and flowers have always just been my nemesis. So for a long time, I've painted flowers in my own way, and I do them more abstract because like I said, they frustrated me. It was one of those things I just couldn't seem to get down. And I don't know if you're like me, but when I'm looking at lights and darks and there's so many different values, it's really hard for me to copy that over onto a watercolor paper. For some reason, when it's animals and things like that, I can do it much easier. But with flowers, there's no, like, I don't really just see the shape. So black and white works really well. If you take a black and white photograph to get your values with flowers, that certainly helps. I can do them now, but they're not my thing. I prefer to do more abstract type flowers. So this is what I shoot for. So I'd love to hear what you guys think. Leave me a comment down below and tell me if you like abstract flowers or if you're more into realistic flowers. There are so many painters that paint these gorgeous realistic flowers. It just amazes me. I've got a couple on Instagram that I just adore. So here we go. Now, I don't know what kind of little flower this would be. A little forget-me-not or something, maybe. I don't think they have that many little leaves in there, but I liked it. It took up space. And my little cone-shaped flowers with little circles on them. You know, I'm not looking at anything, just, you know, whatever little shapes I want to put in here. And that's the real fun with playing with this stuff. You know, everybody always gets so caught up in things being just right, and this is part of the warm-up. So, you know, just have fun with it. So I think I'm going to fill that in with a little bit of paint now. And I'm going to go with a more neutral color. I've got some ochre in here. Yellow ochre, a little bit of orange, and it's going to be more of a natural, I don't know what kind, I guess it's more of an orange color that I've got going on here. That goes with the red. And I've got a little orange in the flower anyway. So I'm not filling it all in, just giving ourselves just a few little spots of color. Let's go ahead and add a little bit to these little ones as well. I had to get the tip of my brush in there. Those are small, aren't they? I'm using the fine tip of my Kolinsky brush here. In case you're wondering what kind of watercolor brush this is. These are some of my favorite brushes. They're sable, and they're my most expensive set I think that I've ever bought, but I absolutely love them and I take really good care of them. Let's throw a little bit of green in here as well. There, cute, huh? So there we have it, a real quick and easy one. And I'm going to show you a second one that I did. This was my first one, and for the second one, here it is finished up. Here's a close-up for you with my Posca pen. So the second one, I did the same thing. I forgot to tape it. I got one of them done. So I caught myself and I turned it on. So here's the other one. So this is a really pretty color. This is actually gouache. It's not watercolor. And if you're familiar with gouache, gouache is more of an opaque, but you can water it down and you can see where it's still very transparent, but it has more of a chalky consistency, but it has some really pretty colors. And the orange that I'm using is regular watercolor. And that's actually tube paint. I don't usually use tube paint. I'm using my pans that you've seen, but this, it looks orange, but it's actually cad red. And then I'm using a little bit of yellow in here as well, and it's cad yellow. So just mixing them in together, letting the water do most of the work for me. So this is quite wet. And with flowers, it just looks so nice because it just really blends in there. I'm letting the paint go where it wants to go. Less control, which is always hard for me. I had mentioned that alcohol inks are wonderful to really get me to loosen up. So that's when I first started using alcohol inks, and it's really helped me get a lot looser with my watercolor. I'll still do a lot of very detailed, very tight, realistic paintings, but this was always a challenge for me to do very loose. And I don't know if you're the same way or not. I have usually you tend to be more a realistic painter or more of an abstract painter, and I have always been both because it just depends on what mood I'm in. I've got a little bit of dry paint in this one, a couple dots. I'm trying to get those out. Adding my yellow, and you can see that yellow and the pink almost makes an orangey color. Some of these petals have 3, some of them have 4. Here, we'll add a little bit more orange into that. So you can see I have some puddles of water here. I have a lighter shade of the more water in that first bin, and then a little bit less in the second, so it's a little bit deeper pink. And we'll make this one a little bit more orange. I started off with adding a little center to it first. And you can see the first one that I did, I let that dry and then I put the center in. These I'm doing all wet. And I'm going to add that center after it dries. And you'll see I'm always dipping into my paints because I don't want all of those colors to be the same. I'm just highlighting a little bit of the petal here. Getting a little separation between a few of them. And I have my camera overhead, so I keep hitting the side of it. So when you see it shake, I'm sorry. So we're going to blow dry this. I want to make sure that this is nice and dry, and then we can do a little bit on the center. You can see when that's drying, it's getting a little bit lighter and a little bit lighter. So keep that in mind when you're doing your watercolor paintings. It's always going to be a little bit darker until it dries, and as it dries, it tends to fade a little bit. So I think that's dry enough. Let's add a little bit of center to this one. You can see I barely have any water in there. Let's add just a little bit of water so that flows a little bit more. Again, just using the tip of my brush just to create a little bit of a center in here. And you can see how random those little strokes are. Sometimes if you paint quicker, it's better because you're just moving your brush around rather than those, those very slow little lines. And this gives you a more, I would say, a more realistic look than, if you paint every single line. I wanted to mention to you guys too, this, the opera rose that I have, the gouache, that tube actually dried out. I either did not put the cover on correctly or it is an older tube that I had. But because it's basically a watercolor, it reactivates with water. So if yours dry up like that, don't throw them away. I will just kind of stick the tip of my brush in there and wet it a little bit, and that's how I'm getting that color out of it. You can also cut them and take them out, and you'll have, the dried pieces, and you can put those in a palette, re-wet them. So, these things are expensive, so I don't throw them away. I will try to use them, and they work. So I'm adding just a little bit deeper shade. I have a little bit less water, so you can see how much brighter that opera rose is now than the first one. And then if you want to blend it a little bit, if you get it just too stark, you can add a little bit more water to it, and you can see it does soften it a little bit. You want a little bit more pink in this one. I love that color. It's such a pretty color. So if you have not tried alcohol inks with flowers yet, there is another one that I had done a while back, and I'll put that up here for you. But at the top right, it's of was it a Johnny Jump Up or a Violet? Violet, I think is what it was. So I'll put that up there for you for alcohol ink. And then I also have a couple courses online. I have the alcohol ink lilac and a sunflower. It's all in the same course. And if you want to try it with alcohol inks, it was one of my first online classes, like almost 4 years ago now. So it's a little bit different than how I teach now, but I'm gaining more knowledge as I go along. I just sent out a note to my students saying that I actually added a PDF to that one because there wasn't a PDF in there of the lilac and of the sunflower, so you can print those out and just basically follow right along with it. So I'll put a link down here for you in case you're interested in that as well. So I'm just adding a little bit more darker values to the center of that to create more of some values in deeper shades in the center, so it pops just a little bit more. So the challenge that we've got coming up on the 8th should be really fun. If you didn't get a chance a couple weeks ago, check out the students' work. They did some fabulous jobs. We just picked a color a day and we did doodles. So this one, since spring is coming, I figured flowers would be perfect. So just to talk about it a little bit more, the challenge, I'd like for you to do at least 3 during that week if you can, 3 paintings. And if you tag me on Instagram and use the hashtag word flower challenge, I will be able to find it on there. So make sure you hashtag it so that I can see it. And then I'm going to take a few of those and do another video on the 17th for those that the students have done the challenge, and they had a lot of fun, and they were just super. They did such a great job, and it's always fun to see how other people paint. I love it. So we're adding just a few leaves here. Again, taking up a little bit more of that white space. Let's give these a few stems. And a little bit darker green. And again, it's wet, so I'm just tapping that color in there and letting it blend where it wants to go. This gives you a little bit more depth. I'm so ready for spring. It actually, today is over, I think it's 57 degrees here in Maine. Huh, it really is happening. I'm excited. We sat on our porch and had our face in the sunshine this morning, so that was nice. And it was quiet because we didn't have our floor crew here this weekend. Have you ever had work done in your house while you're trying to live in it? Ooh, and there's like dust everywhere. Oh, it's awful. I'll be so glad when that's over. So I think that's it. Let's go ahead and blow dry this again, and then I'm going to add just a few more details using that Posca pen. I want to keep this one a little bit light and airy. I tend to use a lot of darker colors, a lot of black. I love to do the pen and ink, but I want to keep this one very light. So I'm just going to use the white pen, I think, for this one. So instead of the Posca pen, let's go ahead and use the white gel pen instead, just so you could see the difference here, if there is much of a difference. Because I've used it a few times with watercolor. I've used the gel pen. And it basically is the same. It's a little bit thinner, I think, than the Posca pen that I had. So if you have that real fine tip Posca pen, it would work very similar to this. So again, just getting a few highlights in here. This is my cheat, because if I wanted to do the highlights prior, I can always use the masking fluid. But the nice thing about this is it gives you a little bit more freedom. So instead of planning things out as to where things are going to go, I can just paint to my heart's content and then go back in and add the details where I want them. So if you enjoyed the video, please make sure to click that like and share button. And I did want to mention today's Tuesday tag. Congratulations. Shout out to Britt Wessel. She did the watercolor sunset painting, and she was the winner of our little watercolor Cotman kit. So Britt, if you are listening, make sure that you send me an email, and we'll get your information to get your little kit shipped out to you. So thanks so much for watching, everyone, and I hope to see you all next Tuesday. I hope you have a great week and happy creating.